Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind's matchday coverage. I'm Paul John Dykes, joined once again with my two cohorts, Colin Watt, Laura Bradburn. Not a bad first half. I'll come to yourself first of all, Colin. What was your overall feeling around that performance?
Bit slow to get going. I don't think that helped the fact there was a couple of niggling tackles and injuries in the first couple of minutes, but once we got into it, the rhythm sort of picked up and we were certainly playing some really attractive attacking football, which is something that we've not said quite a lot this season. I think James Forrest's introduction back into the side has just given us that extra edge. Sometimes when he's not on the right-hand side, he's cutting in, he's taking a touch, the ball's always going in front of him. He played a lovely pass out to Edouard and about 37 minutes in. We'd already been 2-0 up. And it just kind of, the extra touch that Edouard took sort of killed the move. We had a couple like that early in the first half as well, where McGregor kind of overhit it. One where Turnbull got in the road when it should have went to Elyounoussi as well. The scoreline doesn't kind of flatter us. I think it's definitely been coming. And you just hope that it's more of the same again in the second half.
Colin, just while you were talking, quite a few points were coming through. Any excuse to bring up the Dude Abides avatar. Around James Forrest, you mentioned Forrest. He has been Celtic's missing link. I'll come to yourself, Laura. That was kind of fresh in my mind when I was watching the first half. Very much like the Falkirk game, where you were looking for something to happen. When you're looking at it thinking, is this going to be another game where we create 20 chances and we struggle to score? James Forrest, albeit it wasn't the best finish, makes a difference. How much have we been missing him this season?
Well, I think it's an interesting thing because I'll freely admit I'm one of those who fell into the category of maybe not perhaps appreciating how vital he was to us before we were without him. I think because perhaps he can, or he has, and throughout his career been a bit hit and miss in some games. But what I'm enjoying seeing about him come back specifically this time is, and Darren O'Day pointed it out on the commentary, is he seems to be offering so much more to his game than just sticking out wide and trying to beat his man and get the ball into the box. He's playing a lot more free, he's coming into the middle, he's posing a lot more danger, and I think that's something that if he can keep that up, he'll be able to offer as much as he has done and a lot more. And I noticed it specifically against Falkirk, and there's been more of it today, so it's encouraging to see.
It definitely is. I mean, I noticed a few times, Laura, it was a simple run just behind the defence that allowed us to, albeit there were kind of hopeful balls over the top, but sometimes when you're just looking for the breakthrough, that's all you need. But it was the movement, it was the positivity to actually try and carve something open. Now, there was an interesting point coming up in and around Edouard. This is coming in from McGrory on YouTube. Edouard already got his bags packed just before we went live, Colin. You had said that it looks as though a lot of things are breaking down when it gets to the normally twinkle toes of Eddie. He's not at the best first half, is he?
No, he's not, and a couple of chances that he's had, he's sort of snatched at as well. And do you know, his form when he plays for Celtic compared to his form when he plays for the French 21s is just night and day. The consistency from him has been slack this season. And do you know what? If he has got his eye on being elsewhere, then that's fine, but at least kind of put a wee bit of effort in. There's a couple of times where you're looking for him to play the pass or for him to actually put a power behind his shot, and it's just not been there. We kind of discussed this before we came on air, and I'm basically about to say what John McGackey's just said, but I would probably stick I'd probably stick a Yeti on for the second half just to see. I don't think Livingston will come back into the game now. They've not really offered much in the first half. Let's see what we can get for 45 minutes out of a Yeti.
I try to be as balanced as possible when talking, maybe in a sense of negative in relation to the performance of Edouard, but I've got to say he was involved obviously in Forrest's first goal. There was some intricate play between Forrest, Edouard and Turnbull to create the chance, and then I did see kind of near the half-time whistle he was coming a bit deeper to try and get involved in the play. And to be fair to him, Laura, every time he gets the ball, there are 3 or 4 Livingston jerseys round about him. Some might say, well, he needs to get used to that. But it is a difficult game to play when that is what you're faced with.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's where he's had a major issue today is that he has been having to drop deep to try and get involved in the play, and that's partly due to the way we're playing, but also I think Livingston seemed to have spotted that he does best with ball to feet, but through the defence, something to run onto and something to face forward towards goal. And I think they've tried to combat that with a bit of a higher line today, and it's kind of not suiting his game. And I think that's where it's suffering. But in that situation, that's where it's up to us to perhaps look at a different option. The only problem we have is that I've not seen anything from a Jetty or Griffiths or Klamala that would suggest to me that they'd be any more effective in that situation. But still, I agree with Colin that, you've got to give one of those guys a chance, because it's obviously not working for Eddie today, and whether it's attitude or whether it's just the way that he's being sort of marked out of the game is hard to tell, but it's no reason not to give one of these other guys a chance, because we're not even really risking anything at the moment with being 2-0 up either, so it's worth a go, I think.
No, and see, the thing is as well, you've got this game coming up on Saturday, which is arguably one of the biggest games you've still got left for the rest of the season, and you're going to want to use Edouard's experience, because no matter what, if he doesn't turn up for a game against Livingston, he'll always turn up for a game against Rangers. It's just the way that he is. He turns up for these big games. So if you can get that opportunity to rest him ahead of that tie to make sure that he's fit for it, then you should go ahead and do that.
Everyone's a winner. It's one of these situations at half-time, Colin, where, we are comfortable. And I would expect us actually to go on and score another goal or two in the second half as we're sitting here. But stranger things have happened this season. So I would make the change. If I was looking at the bench, we've already spoken about the benefits of assessing the likes of Ajeti before. We write off a £5 million investment. He's not really had a great run of games at any given time. So let's try and give him some game time and see what he can do. The Griffiths question was asked pre-match, Colin, in and around whether or not he's going to be at Celtic Park next season. He's a type of player who might be able to stretch that back line in a way that we've seen Forrest trying to do with runs in behind them. Another player I think we need to discuss, though, is Greg Taylor. We spoke about Greg. Thanks for getting involved, follower Celtic. We did speak about him before the game. Obviously, he's taken over from Laxalt. Laura, I didn't think Laxalt was playing particularly badly to be dropped to the bench today, but I think Taylor has given us a very good outlet down the left.
Yeah, I think he has done. I think he's almost, because I remember Colin saying before the game started that Laxalt does offer us a lot more going forward, and I do agree with that, but it seems like Taylor's maybe adapted his game, having seen that, and is trying to offer that for us today as well. He's certainly doing as much as he can to stamp his place in the team, given that he's been given the opportunity today, and that's all you can ask for. And I saw the commenter mentioned about Kenny not getting to the byline half as much or at all really, and I think what that's done today, comparing Taylor and Kenny, has shown me, I mentioned when we were talking about loan signings and all that and who we would keep on, that Kenny has simply filled a hole for me, and I think that's probably exactly what he's shown again today. He's pretty average if you want to be honest about it, and not somebody you would necessarily look to keep on in the summer, but he's certainly doing a job between now and the end of the season.
What's your thoughts on that, Colin? Because I think when he came in, what I was trying to say is that he was giving us a bit better balance from Frimpong, but I tend to agree with Laura. I look at him and think, well, what would it actually take for us to bring John Joe Kenny to the club in terms of the investment? It'd be huge, when you bring the wages into that. And I don't think he looks like that type of player, that level of player. He's very much run-of-the-mill kind of player. I've seen him losing the ball quite a few times in the first half there. I was hoping that maybe linking up with James Forrest would give him a new lease of life, but he's very ordinary. Would you agree with that?
I think there is a good player there. I mean, when you take a look at it, you don't get to play for Everton and even get the chance to play in the Bundesliga, albeit on loan, without being a good player. He's obviously taken a bit of time to settle in. When he came in at first,
Toljan played in the Bundesliga.
Yeah. And
Edson Braithwaite played in a World Cup or something.
You're just going to ignore that?
I'm just going to completely... I tried to wipe that person's existence in a Celtic jersey out of my mind. The next thing you're going to go on about Maurice Bauer being a better right back.
His distribution was good. His distribution was good.
Aye, fantastic.
And his hair was excellent. His
It
hair
was.
great.
And so was that Inspector Gadget jacket that he wore to that award ceremony. Anyway, sorry for derailing you there, Colin. You were saying.
No, I think he's there's a player there. We've just not seen the best of him yet. And the thing is, he's only got a short period of time to sort of show us what he can do. When he came in at first, he looked at a good, solid signing. And then as the kind of weeks have went on, he's just not really got back to that level that he'd previously set. It's a bit like when Laxalt came in at first. The kind of performances against AC Milan were like, wow, what a player we've got here. And then the next minute it kind of gets bang average again. And then today we're talking about, well, it's quite strange actually he's been dropped for Taylor to come back into the side. So peaks and troughs, and we're kind of seeing one of the poorer performances from Kenny so far today.
I do think that Taylor's definitely put himself right in the running for a starting berth against Rangers. You know, judging by his first half performance anyway, Colin. An interesting point coming in from Stuart Gilmore, so let's bring it up. As poor as I've seen Turnbull, I've actually made a note here because I did think he was having a poor first half. But what I would say is he was tenacious enough to keep wanting the ball. You see a lot of players who hide, don't they? They just don't show themselves in terms of making angles to try and get the ball. But Turnbull's not that type of player. He wasn't having the best first half, but he continually demanded the ball and showed himself. And I think there were a couple of, obviously scored a goal. There was a couple of moments where I thought he's getting more into this. But again, it did seem, Laura, as though they were putting a couple of jerseys on him every time the ball came near him.
Yeah, I think that's the case. You hear that very often. Is not that he was a totally unknown prospect. People knew what he was like at Motherwell, but I think when he first came into the Celtic team, there was probably a little bit of opposition not really knowing where he was fitting in or what his role was, and he used that to his advantage because he had space and time on the ball. But obviously, you know, the disadvantage of playing as well as you have, or as he has since he's come into the team, is that you're going to get noticed and you're going to be a priority for the opposition team to shut down. And that's one thing that I've noticed as David Martindale's come to the fore with Livingston, is he's very meticulous about how he sets up compared to each of his opposition, and make sure that he has defined roles for people compared to or looking at their opposition. And I think David Turnbull's fell foul of that today. But like you say, what's encouraging about him and what makes him stand out, I think, from the rest of the team is his head didn't go down when that was obviously the case when he came out. He was still looking for the ball. He's ended up with a goal off the back of it. He doesn't seem afraid to, if anything, he seems to have been spurred on by the challenge, and that's everything that you look for in something that we've been sorely lacking this season.
Yeah, I think I'd look at the first half performances there, Laura, and although I would say Eddie probably could come off at half time, I would stick with Turnbull. I think he will come into a game in the second half. There's been a couple of comments coming in. First one coming in from Caplaw Mark. Welcome back to the show. Apparently Celtic TV openly discussing how, and in from Facebook, thank you for your comment. Thoughts on Celtic TV talking about how pre-match. We weren't aware of that because we were doing our own wee pre-match on ACSOM, but it would appear, Colin, that Celtic TV are talking about Eddie Howe. It would appear that obviously we are at a situation where his agent is actively looking to see if there are any better opportunities in the English league, but an offer has been made by Celtic and he's weighing that up. I'm not sure what was being discussed. Anyone in the comment section, feel free to share that with us. But how, I mean, when you're looking at Eddie Howe, he still is, for me anyway, our first choice, the best manager we can get at this moment in time. Are you still confident that we're going to get this deal over the line, Colin Watt?
I do think we're going to get this deal over the line. It might have to kind of roll on for another week or two yet, maybe even longer. But I think he'll be the man leading us out for the first game next season.
What about yourself, Laura? I don't know what was being discussed, but it was interesting on an official channel that we're talking about a prospective new manager.
Yeah, I think that definitely, it does a couple of things. What it does is it lends a lot more credence and a lot more solidity to the rumours, and because I'm sure nothing goes out in Celtic TV without the highest echelons of the club being aware of it, so there's been some sort of clarification there that they're allowed to talk about it, perhaps because there's this suggestion that other clubs are looking at him. They've said, no, we need to make our interest more public to kind of try and force his hand, perhaps. But I think what's interesting about the whole situation, and I was talking to Anthony Haggerty about it yesterday, I can't remember if it was on air or off, but, you know, in actual fact, nothing has changed from the minute Eddie Howe's name was first mentioned. It's been the back and forth has been between Celtic fans on social media, and in actual fact, you know, there's been nothing to suggest one way or another that it's definitely happening beyond what the journalists are publishing. So I'm in the same boat as Colin. I don't think there's anything to say that it's looking any less likely than it was last week. You would just hope it was tying itself up a bit quicker than it has done.
Definitely. Now, as we've been chatting, the teams are back on the park. We could probably talk all the way through the second half because the viewing figures are still there. But what we'll do is we'll allow you to go and enjoy that game. One final comment to Paul Cockwell. The game next week's actually on Premier Sports. So if you want to watch the Celtic Rangers game, it is on Premier Sports. But thank you to Colin Watt and to Laura Bradburn and to everybody who's commented on the social media channels. Enjoy the second half and we'll see you at full time.